Well, hello! For this video, we're going to be doing something very interesting. This time we will be creating Twitter. And last time I said I was joking, but this time we actually kind of will. The goal is to make a social media page or just a message board for university prep. That will be your project, and this will be the starter code for that. So really, here's the goal. If you look at all this Twitter, there's a lot going on here, but this is the simple idea. We want to have a user input. We want to type something in like, I love math and cats and math and coding. And then when we press enter or post or tweet, whatever it is, it should show up on the screen, right? Be sure you add it to that board. That's it. That's a simple idea. And we're going to learn how to build that today. Now, just to be clear, if you reload this page, you'd see that this is still here, right? Because this has actually been sent to a database and it's been saved with all my tweets. Yours, obviously, we don't have a database, so it'll probably just disappear. But we want the same functionality where we can input something and then it'll show up on the page. Now, that's it. User inputs. How do we get this data right here and then do something with it? So what you should be doing is starting with this simple page. There's nothing here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with, for now, 3 simple divs. We're going to put the first div at, well, not, sorry, 3 sections. First, we're going to have H1, and we're going to call this University Prep Twitter. Pretty cool, huh? And let's give this an ID so we could refer to it later. And we'll call this the title. Okay, and then we'll go to our next one. And now we're going to actually add an input. We haven't done this before, but to add an input to your page, you just write the word input. And then we have to say what kind of input do you want this to be. And we're just going to say the type of this will be equal to text. All right, and we'll give an ID equal to, this is where people are putting their tweet, so we'll call it a tweet, and then we'll give it a plate. Actually, let's just take a look at what this is so far so you can see what's going on, and then we'll just take a look at our page. And so what you should just see here, if this ever loads, University Prep Twitter here, and we have this input, and you'll see we can type things in here. Now, just to be clear, the reason you'd say what type you want it to be is because you can put different things. You could put like number here, and you'll notice that like you can only put numbers in. So if you tried to put it like words in, it doesn't work. You can only put numbers in there. Or you could even use the thing password. I think we even talked about like how to hack this. But if you put the word password in for your type, you reload your page, you'd see that you get just like poke those dots for a password, so you can't even see it. But that's not what we want. We're making Twitter here, right? So let's put this back to text. And then we're going to add a little thing called placeholder, which is kind of like the text that you see to hold the place of it. So we're going to say type tweet here, Twitter. Perfect. And if you look here, you'll notice that when this finally reloads, it says type tweet here. All right, so that's the placeholder. Now, last thing we need for now is just a button. So we type in the word button. Okay. We're going to say post because we're going to post our tweet here. And let's give this an ID equal to post. All right, so this is our simple page. You'll see that we just have University Prep Twitter, we have an input, and we have a post button that does absolutely nothing. Let's start coding now. All right, so the idea is when we type something here, we press the post button, it should show up like over here. Like we should start seeing things appear on the board, right? Whatever you type. Well, let's give that a shot. So we already got our console log high. The first thing is we want to add an event listener to this button, right? The idea is when we press this button, right, we want whatever is written here to show up on the screen. So the first thing is we're adding an event listener to this button. So if we're adding an event listener to this button, the first thing you should say is, all right, I'm going to make a variable called post, and we're going to say equal to document.querySelector. And then we look at the ID of the thing we want to add an event listener to, and that is post, right? We want this button to be clickable, so we have to grab this ID. So we're going to say hashtag. A lot of people still forget their hashtags, post. And then we're going to console.log post to make sure everything's good and working, and that shows up on the screen. Let's see here. Take a look, and there we go. We got high, that means it's working, and we got our button here. And if you highlight it, you'll see it even goes over. If you're getting a null here, that means you spelled something wrong. Maybe you forgot a hashtag. Maybe you spelled something wrong along the way. Maybe this, where the ID doesn't match what you see here. But that's usually what's been going wrong. All right, so we got a button. It's in a variable. Now let's add an event listener. So we'll say post.addEventListener. And remember, we put 2 arguments. First, we're going to say when we click, That's the event that we're listening for. And then what do we want to happen? Well, the thing that we want to happen is just first we're going to say console log I was clicked. I was clicked. And remember, these are just checks along the way to make sure everything's going okay. You could always check for spelling errors, and it's just not doing too much code before things really start going wrong. Remember, JavaScript breaks really easily. So now when I press post, it says I was clicked. Things are going well. All right, now that we know this works, the next thing I want to do is show you how to get the information out of this, what you see right here. All right, how do we get the information out of this input? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to actually create our, what's it called, a variable right here. I'm going to say let, we'll call it tweet, equal to document. Actually, let's just call this tweet input, all right, just to be clear. So we're going to call this tweet input, call whatever, call it your mom, I don't care, but call it tweet input just so we're clear. So tweet input is going to be document.query selector, and then we're going to put in, what is the ID of that input? Because we want to get the information out of this input now, right? When we click the button, we want to first just see what's inside this input. So the ID of this is tweet. So we're going to do hashtag tweet. All right. Now the next thing is let's just console.log what tweet input is. So we'll say tweet input, and let's see what shows up on the page. So when I type in like blah, 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 and I press post, well, we didn't get the input, right? We didn't get what was in here. We actually got the full input. So the question is, how do I get the actual value of what is inside the input to show up, right? I don't want this input tag. I want the actual, like, what's the value here? Well, it's pretty easy. What we're going to do is just add the word value here. And what that means is get the value out of this input right here. And if we try this again, we'll say like, yo, 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 and we'll press plus. You'll notice that yo, yo, yo. So that's how you get the value out of the input. All you have to do is say document.query selector, what the ID of the input is, plus dot value, and that gets the value out. All right, and the final thing is, now that we've got a console log, we can keep pressing this and it'll show up like it shows up here. We just want this, the console, to actually just show up on the web page. Because remember, the user never sees what's in the console. We want it to actually show up on the page itself. So we have to do a little bit of DOM manipulation, right? We want this document to be edited so things start showing up on it. So what we're going to do is in our index, we're going to make a container for where these divs will show up. All right, and we'll call this, we'll give this an ID of tweet container. All right, simple enough. Let me format this so it starts looking a little pretty. And this is where all our tweets will go. All right, they'll go inside this div. Now, right now, there's obviously nothing in between there. The inner HTML has nothing in it. But what we're going to do is we're going to add things to this. So, simply enough, this is all you have to do. So we're going to say up here, let's do this. We'll say let tweet container equal document dot query selector. And we're going to use the hashtag. What do we have a hashtag of? Tweet container. So what we're going to do is say tweet container. Ooh, looking good. Now that we have this, we're going to edit the inner HTML of this div, right? This is a div. We want to add the inner HTML. So we're going to say tweet container dot inner HTML. And what we're going to do is we're going to set it equal to whatever the tweet input is, right? So whatever this is, whatever the user has inputted, we want that to be set to our inner HTML of that div. Take a second to process it. That was a mouthful. But let's give this a shot. So let's say we try this. We go, hey. Well, let's reload this. All right, we say, hey. That's not working. Oh, here's an error. I said inter to be inner HTML. So let's try this again. So if I say, hey, shows up. If I say, yo, it shows up. If I say, what up, it shows up. But the problem is it should be like with Twitter, where like there's a board, like, right? Everything gets added onto that wall. So we actually have to go and how do we make it so it kind of like, you know, it keeps adding onto this board? It doesn't just do that. Well, it's pretty easy. Instead of having it set equal each time, we'll just do plus equal, which means add to the inner HTML each time. So if you check it out now, if I say like, hey, and I go, yo, and I say, sup, it keeps getting added. But you'll notice there's another problem now. They're all right next to each other. They should be stacking on top of each other. Well, that's a pretty easy thing to change. Here's what we can do. Check it out. We could just say this. So let's delete this for now, and we'll just give these backticks. Now we're going to use backticks for this because we're going to be doing interpolation again. And what we're going to do is, the backticks are right under the escape button. So look over there, make sure you use it or else you won't get the right thing. And we're going to use an H3 tag. You remember H3 tags actually stack on top of each themselves. And what we're going to do is interpolation by using $sign and then these curly brackets. And then we're going to put tweet input there. So each one of these tweet inputs will be inside of an H3, and the H3s should stack on top of each other. So if I go, hey, now, what, up, whatever, you get the point. So they keep stacking, which is good. It's looking good. But let's say I wanted to style these a little bit better. What if I want these to look good? Well, what we could do is actually we can even style them inside of a div. So we can kind of be even more fancy about that. So we could actually put a div around this. So let's put another div container here. Closing brace, okay? And let's give this div an ID equal to tweetbox. Oops. And sorry, let me just format this really quick. This is just for me. You don't have to do this, but I think it looks a lot nicer when you do this. So, make your decisions. I believe in you. Okay. And now that we have this, let's style this tweetbox. So we'll add some style to it. So we can go to style.css. Oh, and tweetbox is already there. Let me just delete that and we'll do it all over again. So we'll say hashtag tweetbox. And what we'll do is we'll say, let's give it a background of gray, which is RGB 245, 245, 245. Let's give it a border. So we'll say border. We'll say solid 1 pixel. And yeah, let's just take a look at what that looks like. So now if I reload this and I say how this looks, if I go hey, ooh, now it's starting to look a little bit more social media. Yo, it's looking pretty good. Now you might notice there's a little bit of space that we want some space in between there. So let's just add a little bit of a margin. So we'll say margin 10 pixels. Let's add a little bit of padding, 10 pixels, and maybe that'll look a little bit better this time around. We'll say hey, and then yeah. Perfect. Now the next thing I want to do is actually want to make another button. I want this to actually have a different thing where we can whisper things. So this is where we're going to get a little bit more complicated, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a new button here. So underneath here, we're going to say button, and we're going to give this one an ID of equal to whisper. We're going to say whisper here. All right, so now we should have our second button that says whisper, which does nothing. So let's add an event listener, and I'm going to be really lazy about this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy and paste this line right here. Actually, yeah, let's copy and paste our post. And we'll call this whisper, right? Because the first we have to do is just get the whisper thing here. We'll go whisper here. And then we'll go whisper that add event listener. And we'll do click. And then we'll do our thing here. Now, here's the deal. For this one, I don't want it to just post exactly the same thing, but we're going to do a little bit of a change here. So we're going to copy and paste this again. So once again, this would just take the same thing and I'll put tweet input here. But what we're going to do is we're going to make actually everything go to whisper. And by whisper, I mean we'll change everything to lowercase. So maybe someone gets really mad and blah, blah, blah. We'll just use a lowercase for everything. So we'll say let whisper equal to, and then we're going to take our tweet input and we're going to put this thing called, we're going to use a string method. And we're going to say to lowercase with these parentheses. Now what this does is it just turns any string, any words into all lowercase. And instead of tweet input here, we will say whisper. So if we go back here, and let's say I was really mad, I was you suck. Now when I whisper it, you see everything is lowercase. Now how did I know how to use this thing called to lowercase? Well, all I had to do was look at this reference. These are string methods. This should be in Google Classroom. And these are all the different things that you can use for this project. You could slice it, split it, search, replace. Take a look at these, and these should help you. All right, kiss your mother. That is the end of this.